What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Marcus Bullock, the CEO and founder of Flick Shop. Here I am with another special edition of Marcus As. I can't wait to hop into this conversation. This one's going to be dope. This one specifically is for all of you folks who talk about education and why it's important. But this one applies to people who are incarcerated. The question I'm asking tonight is education, is a formal education important while you're incarcerated? I'm going to be joined with my friend William Freeman. He's going to talk about his journey through incarceration and why education was important to him. I'm super excited to be able to chop it up with him. I can't wait to jump into this conversation. I hope that you guys will definitely hop in and be able to hop into the comments. Please let us know what's important to you, what you're thinking about, whether or not education is going to be important for your loved one who was incarcerated, or if you were incarcerated, were you intentional about getting access to some formal education while you were there? Whether it be vocational training, whether it be your high school diploma or equivalent, the GED. Like, these are all things that we were concerned about before we went to prison. But then when you got there, did you take it a step further? Did you go in and jump in and go get your college degree? So as soon as he joins the conversation, we're going to jump straight into this topic because I, for one, believe that gaining a formal education is critically important as people while you're incarcerated. So, my boy William's hopping in right now. What's good, bro? How you? Oh, I can't hear you. I
No,
can't hear you. I
you
can't hear you.
can't. You can hear me? Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you now. I can hear
Oh,
you.
I had it sitting on the mic. What's going on?
Man, I'm cooling, bro. Like, I'm trying to keep it. I'm trying to keep the skates going, man. I'm on this road trying to figure out, how to
Mm-hmm.
continue to grow Flick Shop and the Flick Shop School of Business, obviously Flick Shop Angels. So I
Mm-hmm.
get excited when I have these kinds of conversations, specifically around education, whether it be in prison, out of prison, and who better to talk to than my guy William.
Oh man, you give me too much credit out here, man. It's a lot of people working at this machine.
No question.
Gotta
I mean,
be.
but they say when they ask the question,
Mm-hmm.
how do you eat an elephant? And they say one bite at a time.
Bite of the
And
tongue.
apparently you jumping at it. So I'm excited to for you to jump in and talk to our guests about
No, for sure. And we definitely all eating out of the bite at a time, but this thing grows back faster than we can get it down on the stomach.
it. No question, no question, no question. So before we jump in, I don't like to take up all of the time in introducing our guests. So I'll let you introduce yourself. Take a few seconds and tell us who is William.
Oh man, William is a father. William is a fiance. William is a social advocate for change, change for folks who have experienced carceral spaces. In a nutshell, William is a lifelong student, so I'm a first generation student, first generation graduate, undergraduate. My lips look chapped. I can't make up for that. I'm fasting. I can't. I'm fasting and dehydrated and everything else. But
Shout
William is an
out to all of our
imperfect.
folks that celebrating Ramadan right now.
Yeah, man, for real, for real. But man, William is an imperfect being, man, hoping to make some impact before he leaves Earth.
All right, so let's jump in. So talk to us, like, give us the rundown. So apparently I'm not the only one on this live that has done time before.
Right. Oh, absolutely not. So I went to prison at 18. I was sentenced to life plus 20 years and served 21 years on that. I mean, I had given it back in the sense that they suspended the life and gave me 35 without the possibility of parole, but then, sent me back in. Then I did 21 years on that sentence. And before a judge accepted a letter written by one of my professors and thought that letter, he couldn't believe it. You know what I mean? That education that this professor has spoke about me in such a way in terms of education when I'm standing in front of him, according to the way he read it, the dumbest criminal alive, right? And he says to me, I'm gonna let you out, man. You stay with this education thing and you get out here and you make a change. Little did he know I didn't have anything on my mind but trying to make a change since my charge, I can't ever fix it. So I definitely felt like I was going to work indirect amends by giving back to folks, and even now, not trying to promote everything I do, just because I want to keep it pure and sincere for the reasons I'm giving it up.
Nah, that's dope, man. I can appreciate that. So, Young, you got sentenced to a lot of time in prison. And run me
Yeah.
back one time. How much time did you actually serve?
21 years.
21 years in prison.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, let's go. Let's talk to some of the folks who are watching this who have a loved one that's serving a long prison sentence.
Yep.
I want you to speak to them. For someone who's serving a long prison sentence, what do you tell that family member that's looking to figure out how to support someone who may be serving time like the 21 years you served?
Right. So now that's a great question. I love it. So what I would tell families that's supporting somebody that's serving lengthy sentences, first run a marathon, not a 50-yard dash. So what I mean is don't go broke in the beginning and then dump off on a person to the middle and then want to show back up in the end. All kind of feelings got to get worked through, and prison does its job at that point by alienating folks from their people. So basically it's developing like boundaries with the people that you're supporting, like letting them know your limitations, be honest. Because I think a lot of times our family, they try to soothe us by telling us what they think we want to hear. But in reality, the worst, and I'm sure you could attest, or people on here listening can attest, the worst feeling a person could feel is when somebody says they're going to do something for you and you're in there and you can't do it for yourself and it never shows up. You develop this sense like, I'm going to show everybody, I'm going to prove them all wrong, right? When you could have just said, hey, look, you call this amount of times a day. I mean, granted, there's all kind of legislation on the ground. California just did something really dope with making phone calls free for all incarcerated people. We were just in Annapolis on the ground pushing for some piece of legislation like that here in Maryland. They're just looking like, where can they get the money from, right? So there's things going on, but in the meantime, in between time, those phone calls are predatory, right? And they cost a lot of money, just bare minimum. Commissary is predatory, and it costs a lot of money for sugar and salt. You pay for diabetes and high blood pressure. So, no, honestly, so
Real
the
talk.
thing I say to do, man, if you're supporting someone is, man, be an ear, right? What you don't know, and then keep people attached to what's going on out here. Like, don't let people become prison. I know a lot of guys, and they go in, and the support is sketchy, and then it goes away, and they become prison, like they become legends in there. And so when they come home, they struggle with all of these barriers and doors getting slammed in their face. So a phone call, I'm not going to tell folks send money if you don't have it, right? You definitely need your money out here. It's like the question, you have kids, would you want to get a pair of shoes for yourself or a pair of shoes for your kids? You got to choose one. You know what I mean? And the correct response to that is a pair of shoes for yourself so that you can go and make some money to get a pair of shoes for your kids. So I tell people all the time, my brother just came home. He had like $300 to his name trying to send $150 back into the prison. I'm like, bro, you're going to need that. You're going to need that out here. The best thing you can do for them brothers in there is write them, bro. Sit down and write them. Put 10 minutes to a letter. And it's so dope out here, you don't even got to write. You can just tell it to your phone. And if you got the app that transcribe, you can transcribe it, put it on the email and send it to them. But, man, those letters go a long way, man. I came home with about 16 years worth of mail. Like, we don't throw mail away. We reread mail around certain times of the year. You know what I mean? So Christmas come, if that's what you're doing at the time I was, these different holidays or even visits. When you get a piece of mail and it reminds you, and the picture and it reminds you of a time and a place, you hold on to that and you keep your sanity with that piece. You keep the hope. So I don't think people out here really know how far that goes. So even if you broke, run a marathon by staying in contact with folks, even if it's not every day, because some folks don't have the liberty to sit still and be on the phone every day if they can afford to pay for it. So a short letter, I mean, honestly, some of the best letters I got were like, hey, man, just thinking of you, love you with the heart, right? And that when I lay it on my chest and they hit the lights off and I lay there in the bed and just hold on to that, like, man, they miss me out there. And that kept me wanting to wake up in the morning and be better than I was the day before. So, yeah, I would tell folks, run the marathon from a sensible position. Everybody, me included, everybody feels like they got a loophole in their case. And respectfully, a lot of cases they have loopholes. They have something in them, right? Because humans are working the cases. But again, I wore my family out in the beginning. I just had my mom in the beginning, and I broke her like in the first year and a half. I mean, I had her sending me clothes packages, money for food, entertainment pieces. I had her visits. That's gas and time. And
Yeah.
she got like a year in on a life sentence and disappeared on me. And I was a kid. So I had to go through that phase of realizing as I grew older that I actually ran her away because all I saw was what I wanted still instead of realizing what I needed to be focusing on. And that was getting out of there. So if people out here hear me say that, man, be straightforward with your family or your loved ones that you support. They will appreciate that in the end.
Yeah, nah, man. This is, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we launched Flick Shop. We tell people all the time, right? Like, you know, a picture and, you know, a few sentences go a long way. I tell people all the time, you know, I kept all of the mail when I was in, you know, when I was inside, and a lot of it came home with me, right? A lot of the pictures came home with me. I think about those people who were being very thoughtful during those times, and I can't tell you the people who sent me money along the journey. I'm grateful for all of them, but I can show you pictures of the folks who took the time to get something, a photo developed and send it to me in the mail. The mail call is everything inside of there.
Bro, that walk, like me and my fiance, we talk about it all the time. Like that walk when they call your name, it's just like in a place, we used to refer to it as the land of the living dead, right? But when you hear your name, it's like in that moment equivalent to something. And we used to talk about it this way. It's like being dead, but somebody on earth reminiscing about you and saying, man, I remember when Will was out here and he did X, Y, and Z, right? And just being able to look down on that like, man, they miss me. I'm somebody. I count, man. And it used to be a big thing, right? You get mail consecutive days. You will hear your name coming through the doors. They'd be like, yeah, I hear that, boy, I hear that. Right?
Everybody sights. Real talk. Real talk.
And those pictures in that mail saw more than my hands, man. It sent hope to other people. You know, it was, I had cell buddies that used to be like, hey, cell buddy, mind if I read that? I'm like, nah, go ahead, bro. Hey, can I see your pictures? Man, go ahead, bro.
Real talk.
Man. Yeah.
I tell all the time, like, I remember, you know, taking my mail out to the rec yard, taking pictures out to the rec yard, and like people were beginning to live vicariously, not through even me, but through my folks, right?
Facts.
Like they knew about my nieces and nephews well before they met them in a visiting room. They knew about my mom well before they seen her in a visiting room, right? And I think that that was super, super powerful. Talk to me a little bit about your journey through education and why that was important for you while you were still in. Because you could have like just said, nah, I'm gonna just do this time and try to figure out how to get myself out. But you were very intentional and thoughtful about advancing and furthering your education while you were still in. Tell me why.
Two things. So as a young, when I was out here in society, man, I made it all the way through grade 12 and graduated. And they didn't even have my 12th grade grades. So I got pushed through. So I was mad, right? I was mad that I had been ignored by this process and set out to prove them wrong. Like I can learn, right? I'm capable of learning. That's one. But two, the type of charge I had, I realized that I wasn't going to get forgiveness from the greater community on my own. Like you said, I had to live vicariously through other people. So I had to get this education so that I could help other people who couldn't read, who struggled to write, who needed help with law work. Like I needed the education, I say all the time, it gave me the credentials to stand next to my soul again, right?
Wow.
I had been in front of people, in front of, you know, review boards and judges, and when they say with the charges, they're like, wait, you did what? You nah, go ahead. We don't want to see him, right? And so as I started giving back, honestly giving back, not for the pictures, not for the gram and that, right? Like honestly doing things and learning, people started looking at me like, wait, he knows something. Like, man, I like when he talks. And then I saw a different association I could have in the community, and I didn't need violence. So I learned this, right? There's three people, in my opinion, there's three people in prison that have the smoothest bit. I don't care who you are, right? The jailhouse lawyer, that's pretty good, that'll tell somebody like, bruh, I don't see the loophole. Don't get me those deputies. Not the one that don't see it and say, yeah, get me $100 in deputies, right? No, the one that says, bruh, I don't see it, and I don't want to take your money. People are going to look out for him. The comedian, the one who makes people laugh, right? And then there's the wise person, the person that people who don't even know him can come to and tap in for mediation. Hey, bruh, this is what's going on. What do you think about that? And education gave me that in there. When people knew that I was, so first off, I got two opportunities at it. I was at Patuxent and they had Anne Arundel Community College in there. Most of that was through the mail. And we cheated that process. We needed in-person teaching. We needed teachers coming in. We needed them people invested in us. And I'm not saying Anne Arundel wasn't invested in us, right? In a whole sense. But it was like a partial program. Sometimes we have a professor, most times we don't. We just get a packet. And we used to take turns doing the packet. It might be my week to do the packet. It's your week next week, and then we all just copy the answer. So that wasn't education to me. And then when Goucher came in, or when I heard about Goucher, I was like, man, I got to get down there. And I intentionally put in for a transfer and stayed out of trouble for 2 years. They was like, you got to stay out of trouble for 2 years and we could get you down there. Bruh, I committed to it because I understood something. No judge is going to touch my sentence, right? My mom has a problem. My parents have a problem going to church with my charge, right? They're like, he took someone's life. Like, there was big problems around this, right? And I knew I needed something else. I didn't have access to make money in there because, you know, people forgive the person who makes a lot of money, right? If you can win a championship and get everybody money, they like, look, Kobe, it happened. You okay, buddy, right? And I knew, like, the path that I had access to was education. I got down there, and a brother had took me up for the information session. They told me they were going to put me on a waiting list. I'm talking about, I sold myself. I said, miss, I got to get this. This is what I'm up against, right? And she said, sit down and let's see at the end. And I'm talking about, I made sure I raised my hands and asked questions during the information session. I was like, man, I got to get this. I got to get this. And when I got in, man, bro, we read the footnotes, the end notes. We read the bibliography. We wanted to know, who did they read from? Who did they take from? What were their politics? We didn't just take the curriculum. And what that did, COs, I'm talking about dudes would come into jail and had clout officially in different organizations and everything. And something would go on and dudes would be like, man, I heard about you, man. Man, what do you think? This is what we got going on with these other guys. And I used to be real clear about it. Like, bro, look, y'all can move on them, and then they shut us all down, and then y'all can't move at all. It don't make sense. And dudes used to be like, oh, I like you. And I used to be like, okay. But I no longer needed to lift the yard and be violent or wear my charge like a badge of honor. I literally could be a nerd in prison. And so that's and I don't even tell it that way, but I'm on here and I'm like, I want to be authentic. I usually tell a story about the transformative power of higher education. Right? But
no, we got to keep the buck on Marcus X, man.
Yeah, it's fact. But honestly though, education was real because we don't get access to it in our communities, right? Yeah. Let's think about it. When people get educated in our communities that don't go to prison, most times, what do, bro? They take flight. They move where their neighbors don't look like us, and they take their education with them. So I'm telling you, once I got in, I was like, and I wasn't by myself. We had a collective. We were like, yo, we're the talented 10th. We're the ones responsible for getting this PEP program and then taking it back to these tiers. So we shared our books. We shared our essays. Even when they got marked up, we shared all that, like, nah, this is the process, bro. And had guys in the programs. We started youth programs and had guys literally, we would take pieces out the syllabus and take it up there and have them read this section and tell me what you think. And from that, I was being a chameleon because I would go to class and I would pay attention to the mannerisms of the professors, the phrases they used, the way they talked about education. Like, there was a process. Even writing, it wasn't just regurgitating what you read. It was how do you synthesize between this author and this author, and they seem on the surface to disagree. How can you make them agree, right? Stuff like that. It was different. And so we had young dudes coming in. The prison system had flipped. The old heads lost control. The young guys had control. And then on top of that, now gangs had exploded. So the balance in all of that was being able to have some sort of wealth or chip you could leverage with folks. And for me, it was education. It'd be like, yo, he's really smart. Look, I'm telling you, let's ask him. Let's see what he thinks. And I always kept it a buck with people, even for people that I thought ain't had no way. I'm like, bro, you got to start writing. You got to get out there in other ways because physically you might be here for a while. So you need to write that book, even if it's a pamphlet, bro. Like, if you sit down and write something, I'll get with you and we can clean it up as best I can. And then I'll shop it to one of my professors like it's me. And then they'll go back with it and clean it up. And then we'll have something we can put out there, like real talk. So they actually came at MCIJ and was like, we don't want them sharing their books because we literally, you could turn your books back in or you could keep, right? You could hold on to them as long as you're in the program. We held on to all our books. So when we read a book, that book now is with him. that book is with him. And that book is with him. But guess what? We going by the syllabus that we went by. They don't know that. We like, look, did you read pages 79 through 110? Did you write something on it? I need to see your reflection. And we have become illegitimate professors in that place. And so, and then even coming home, same thing, man. I was so glad that I had this type of education, not the curriculum. I'm talking about the part where you're learning how to process complex things and match stuff that don't go together, because I would have been back to the streets by now. But I came home and I started looking for the gaps. Like, where's the, right? So when you do a lit review, you do a lit review to find the gap in the literature. Where can I add to it, right? I came home the same way, like, man, where's the gap out here? And for me, it was flipping motorcycles. But I wouldn't have saw that, like buying motorcycles on Marketplace when it's not season, getting new tires on them, new plastics on them, and then when season hit, turning that thing back over for an extra $4,000. Like, I didn't see that, bro. Like, but learning to do those lit reviews and read stuff that even reads the same, really dense, and find gaps in it. Well, wait, he's not saying that. But okay, now I applied the same process to like navigating barriers to reentry.
Nah, this is dope. Shout out to Goucher. I mean, shout out to Anne Arundel Community College as well for doing as much as they could while folks were in there.
And
shout
that's
out
my
to Goucher. Shout out to all.
Somebody else might say Anne Arundel was dope. I'm not, because I know other people that's on platforms, right, that went to Anne Arundel. I'm sure Chris Wilson would say it's dope, right? I'm name dropping. I'm sure he would say it's dope, but his was a different experience than mine, I guess. But
Nah. Yeah, shout out to Chris, man. If y'all haven't checked out his book, Master Plan, go get that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's important to be able to make sure that we do name drop, right? And name drop, especially for the folks that support us. The folks who are like giving their lives to make sure, dedicating their lives, to make sure that folks like you and I had access, right? Because there's something to be said about access. And it's interesting that how you leverage the access that you had to take it back to the pod so that other people can gain some of the same access and, use your words, become an illegitimate professor. I think that that's important for other people to be able to hear, one, the ingenuity behind the people inside of the classrooms and the brotherhood, the kindred spirit that you would share with someone else in the pod, because some folks don't have the same access. There's still some levels of privilege, even inside prison, which I think that folks would find interesting. So thank you so much for sharing that story. Tell me, what are you working on now? What's got you excited right now?
So, a couple of things. Right now, I was in Atlanta about a month ago. So Atlanta got an ordinance.
Congratulations! Shout out to the ATL.
Right? They got, man, that's so dope. So they got, and that's not the end all be all, because I know Illinois with Marlon Chambers and them with Fully Free campaign. I know they did some work around, protected class status and a bunch of other stuff, right? And even talking to him, he's like, that's not the end, because they identified like 16 statutes that block reentry, right? And they're trying to work through those in addition to that protected class status. But anyway, shout out to Bridget Simpson down in Atlanta with Bar Business, led that push down there. They got that. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, facts. So I'm really excited about, we've been in like strategic planning here on the ground. That's my state level work. But and hey, let me be honest. I don't believe in policy. I don't personally. I don't believe in policy.
Oh, you got to run that back. You got to spin the block on that one.
I got you. So I think we fight to have policies or pieces of legislation passed to take the excuse off the table. Not that that's what we needed. We just needed them to not be able to say, well, they're not petitioning the courts for that, right? We need to remove that so that we can see what's next. But we've been in this fight for 500 years. So you're not telling me that at no point in the history of us as people here in this country have we not put it together properly for you to understand our gripe. But it's always, you need to do one more thing, right? And I learned that on the compound with I'm all over, but I'm going to bring it back. The chain of command. I remember one day somebody said something to me, and I said, well, there's the warden right there, Warden Webb at Hagerstown. So I run up on him. I said, hey, Warren, can I talk to you for a minute? Didn't know I was an advocate then either. I didn't know, right? But when I look back, I see it then. So I said, can I talk to you for a minute, man? Look, this is an elevator pitch, right? Didn't know I had one. Look, you don't know me. We've never had contact. My name is William Freeman, and we're having a problem here in unit. This was going on, and this is what the solution could be. Just want to know what you would think about that, and if you could say something to the shift command, right? And he says to me, what are you learning? What are you working on, right? Because he's telling me don't worry about other people. And I said, no, I can't not do that because we're in here like dominoes. If one person breaks out with leprosy or the plague, it's going to spread. We're in a controlled environment. He's like, I like that, but this is what I need you to do. Have you written your housing unit officer, shift command? I said, no. You're going to need to do an informal to him. He'll respond. If his response is not what you were looking for, then you would write the AW. The AW will respond. And then he will write.
I don't know what AW is.
Assistant warden. And so the warden had introduced me to this thing called chain of command. But what I realized is by the time I had gotten to the warden and he still wasn't giving me what I wanted and still had a response, it wasn't that the system or the structure worked or getting a new rule or something in Comar evaluated or interpreted a different way wasn't what helped us. It was like, listen, we've already done that. Now what? That's done. We've already heard from them. They said that's the interpretation is wrong. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys get gray t-shirts. Like, I'm not asking you for gray t-shirts. That's the same way policy works. They'll take the teeth out of a piece of legislation and give you a blanket. And you're like, I'm not cold. I don't need a blanket. I want some clothes, right? So I'm saying all that to say, working on a protective class status. And then, so we did something really dope. I started an organization with 200 individuals called Raw Trust. Different than where I work, right? But Raw Trust, redistributing agency and wealth. Met this woman in Annapolis around Lobby Day. We down there advocating for them to raise minimum wage to $15. This woman hears us talking, right? Comes to we used to have legislative trainings at Out for Justice, a grassroots organization in East Baltimore. Shout out to Nicole Hanson Mundell. And she pulls me up and she says, listen, I don't want to be beholden to structures and systems. I want to be beholden to the people who's actually on the ground. I said, I don't know what that means. She said, let's do lunch. We did lunch and she said, look, a very large sum of money. I want to put this in an account and give it away. I said, man, I know so many people who need money. And so we did reentry support for individuals. We didn't take pictures. We didn't ask for testimonies. You don't have to fill out an application. We gave folks $1,000 up to $1,000 in theory. But what happened was, you know us, the word gets out there. They're like, oh, he got money. And like, bro, I don't have the money, bro. Calm down, right? Calm down. So we're doing some of that. Recently just had an opportunity to pay an individual lawyer for him to go back to court. And then again, you won't see this printed in any newspapers on purpose, right? So working on that. Palace back restored. So we're doing some work with DPSCS here. That's the DOC, Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, for somebody who don't know, and working with the Secretary of Corrections and about 5 or 6 commissioners, and then a committee of people with lived experience, Ramika Robinson, Stanley Andrees, a couple other folks sit on that committee, and we're trying to be intentional about feeding them information they need as they roll out what programming looks like for programs that want to expand or get involved, like go in. So there's a whole host of programs going in. Really excited. One of the things we were able to do was get them to agree, no matter what institution a person is at, if a college, let's just say, and this is happening, but University of Baltimore is a JCI. That's just a correctional institution. That's the one, the annex that's behind the old Cup building. They're there, and so you're at MCIJ, which is behind JCI, but you want to get in UB because they're offering a program you want. You literally can apply straight to UB. If you get accepted into UB's program, the transfer follows. Done deal.
Wow.
So, and that's dope because far too often these programs were set up in certain institutions for reasons, right? Like MCTC, Maryland Correctional Training Center, Hagerstown. One of the bigger institutions had most of the programs because it also anchored a rural area and community of folks. So we just being honest, that is up there because yes, there's land, but there's also employment opportunity for folks up there. So you see a lot of cousins and brothers and nephews and all that working in the prison. But here nor there, doing some of that work, really excited about that. We got a meeting Friday. So look out for
Uh-oh.
the documentary.
Y'all heard it here first.
Yeah, we got a documentary ready to drop. We did some reparations work when we first got our 501c3. We got 2 grants to do, reparations. So we thought, we went to a community in Cherry Hill and asked them, like, what should we do with this money? It was important for them to be able to say, or people on the ground to say, look, y'all should do that. And so folks felt like, man, y'all need to get people stories. So we got the documentary. We looking at it 1:30 on Friday. I'm excited to get to see what it looks like before anybody else looks like, and still have feedback at that point. But just capturing the fact that we're not taking away from the body of work that people have done around reparations for years. We want to add to it, right? We want to add to it by being specific from the mouths of the people. And we were intentional. We don't have scripts. We talking to people, and people are literally all over the place, but that's important too. Our community, race is not a single descriptor that describes us all. 2 Black people don't have the same experience, even as 2 Black people, right? But oftentimes we get lumped together, and it's like all Black people are like this.
Right, real talk. This is why I think that critical race theory is important in school.
Yes.
But we're not even going to jump into that.
I was ready. They're scared of critical race theory because it does exactly what it needs to do. It dismantles racism from the minds of people who are still formidable.
No question. So look, this is dope. I love hearing this. One of the things I get excited about with these kinds of conversations, one, it shows the level of brilliance that is one that's living in those cells, right? Like people will look at you, or they'll look at me, or you name some other people who have been incarcerated, and they will call them unicorns. They're anomalies, and I'm like, it's a bunch of dope people that's locked up in these cells. And if they had you are the best example I can use for what happens when you have access, when you have social capital. You have the professors who willing to commit to your work, and they don't even understand that it's snowballing back on the unit. Right? And I think that is transformative for an entire community to be able to hear. So I'm super grateful for you sharing that. One of the other things that you guys have heard today was not only the power of education inside of the facilities, but how it transfers post-release, right? You listen to William, you're watching in real time him build and grow something that is centered around his educational experience and how he wants to help build transformative opportunities for other people, even post-incarceration, which is super, super dope. I love the fact that you're intentional about not wanting to be able to share it widely across social or in the press or media, because you want to be able to maintain its authenticity and its organic presence, because we all know that the grassroots people on the ground are the folks that actually get the work done. But William, I'm grateful that you shared this here with us, because it's important to talk about it. It's important to share the success stories, not only while in prison, but definitely after prison. Look, I got a shirt on that says "End Recidivism." And if we all want to be able to end recidivism for the people that are coming home from prison, for you guys that don't know, that means if you go out of prison and go back in. We want to stop that. We want to prevent that from happening. And I think that William did an incredible job by sharing how he leveraged his educational experience to continue to catalyze his amazing journey post-incarceration. And we ain't talking about 2, 3, 4 years, and that's a long time. We're talking about a 21-year bid. What does that mean for families when they see this? Well, you know what it means? It means that it's possible for your loved one as well. This is not just a conversation. This is a data point that you can use, that you can share with your loved one and your other family members to say what the possibilities are post-incarceration. Hey, yo, William, I'm super excited for your journey. Thank you so much for sharing some of that with us. If y'all not following him, make sure you follow him. I'll make sure I tag him inside of this post, inside this video. But I think it's also important that we all figure out a way as a community to collaborate with one another, because one of the things that you also heard him talk about was how he's built a community around people who want to be able to support inside of this moment of ending mass incarceration. It's so important for us to be able to collaborate together. Yo, before we sign off, I want to give you the last word, bro. And I want to specifically ask you a question. What do you tell to the people who are still locked up and they wondering whether or not they should be investing their time inside of the classroom?
Man. So first, again, like I told you, I always try to shoot straight, and I realized that the classroom is for a specific learning style, so it might not be for everyone. So I want to extend it beyond that and say the entire prison yard, right?
Woo.
Right. But the classrooms are there, but that's for a specific learning style. So I don't want to tell people like if you learn from being interactive and putting your hands in the dirt and being, like you're that type of learner, man, whatever that is, investigate it, ask questions, right? Don't just go off of what we knew as kids, because kids got us there, right? It was an old timer who used to tell me all the time, like, man, who's saying your best thinking got you in prison, right? And that's something when you think about it. However, for the folks in the classroom, man, Ta-Nehisi Coates said in his book, Between the World and Me, he said that the classroom was like a prison and the library was freedom. So for folks, if you don't make it to the classroom, you got to make it to the library. And if you don't make it to the jail's library, you can still order books. E-books are free, right? They got tablets now here in Maryland. I don't know who else is looking at this, but man, you can print pieces of a book and send it to people, pages at a time. It's about your resilience and your resistance. Never give up, never give in. Those classrooms, though, are not about curriculums to me, in my experience. Now I'm talking to the people who are built for the learning style of sitting in a classroom. It's not the curriculum that made us who we are, right? We didn't come to the classroom half empty. Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. We're not half empty needing to be filled. We come to those classrooms with a wealth of information. Those classrooms help us learn one another and see across lines that we drew in ignorance, right? So I was in the class with all kinds of people that I wouldn't even probably spoke to if we wasn't in that classroom. And then we got to be educated and vulnerable in that, right? We didn't have to use our manliness or our hyper-masculinity to identify anymore. We actually could act like nerds. And that was helpful. So I think that the classroom is a neutral space for folks in prison. So if you're in a war zone all of the time up here, and you're in there, you're in a war zone in your cell, all of your cell buddies, there's always a war zone, a war zone, a war zone. Man, enter into a neutral space and leave all your warring mechanisms at the door. And God knows what you're walking to. God knows what you're walking to.
Man, that's dope advice. That's dope advice. You spoke to both different kinds of learners. I knew you was gonna crush it. Hey, yo, thank you so much for joining us again. For all of you guys that joined us tonight on this edition of Marcus Asks, yo, bro, thank you for hopping on with me and just chopping it up with me for a bit. I gotta find you. I gotta find a way to be able to get you down to DC, man, so we can go grab some lunch together.
I'm in DC.
We continue this conversation.
DC. You just tell me when, and I'll make sure that's one of the days I'm in office. We catch lunch.
We
It'll have
locked
to
in.
be
We locked in.
Ramadan, though.
After Ramadan, no doubt, no doubt. All right, bro. Thanks again for joining us, man. Thank you all for joining us for another edition of Marcus Asks. I'll see y'all in the next one.